We did a lot of talking because it generated a lot of thoughts, but was there anything that you wanted to say that we did not give you an opportunity to say?
I realized I didn't answer your question, Joel.
Oh,
What is the problem that personality hacker solves?
oh,
This is actually going to sound kind of like this. I can't believe that this came full circle like this, but um, in my opinion, and like you said, I've been through many of your programs. I think the core problem that personality hacker solves is around this self awareness and kind of creating a space to explore the self and to have a community that allows you to develop and feel seen in a way that the greater environment does not allow for. Um, and I think that's a much needed thing for especially entrepreneurs, but anybody going through a self growth journey.
yeah. It made me think in terms of like this idea. I wrote literally down self-awareness brings you up to the same place as someone maybe with privilege. I kind of wrote that down. That spoke to me how you said that as a frame to come from. It made me think in terms of we assume like equality and distribution. We always talk about it in the outer world where there's hard assets and hard resource. And, metaphorically, there's only so much beachfront property. So not everyone can have beachfront property. So how does how do we get equality in the world, in the external world, when there's differences and limitations? But we also have an unequal distribution with the self in that some people are more focused on self-awareness and self-growth. And these things are free. Like these aren't resource distribution problems. They're more attunement problems. They're more challenges. What came up for me is we can have, my idealism says we can have perfect equality in self-awareness because everyone has themselves and everyone has the inner space and terrain to explore. And it costs time and energy, but it doesn't cost external resource for that. It costs willingness, intentionality, focus, humility. And we all have all those resources are available to all of us. Like some people need healing and other things to access them, but they're all there. The raw materials are there. So it really awakened to me this idea of we don't even think about that as a framework to talk about equality and humanity being a little bit more privileged in a way. I think that's why it works, right? Self-awareness, because the external privilege that someone might have, there's like internal things that they kind of just got that they may not even know they have inside of themselves. Like not the fearing of like when the resource is going to run out. They can like, they don't have that constant panic. Maybe if they're in a place where they don't have to think about resources much as maybe someone that's struggling. And so the internal systems are more calm and chill, like their nervous system is calm and chill. But someone can earn that same calm and chill through work and self-awareness that person just gets because of their context, maybe. Is this idea, you both are looking at me like maybe I'm not clear on my idea, but is this resonating? Is this tracking what I'm saying?
Well, I have a thing I would say, but I want to
hear what Darren says.
No, I have another thing.
Okay.
You sparked something for me. Go ahead.
Yeah. When you said it's free, the first thing that popped up is it's not free. It's without financial cost.
Exactly. It's available.
But then you mentioned all the things that do have to go into it. Energy, attunement.
It's as free as a gold mine in my backyard, right? Like,
yes,
I still have to go and dig it out.
Yeah. And I do believe we're on unequal footing there too, because
Yes.
there are people whose lives are complicated, difficult, start out maybe with a lot of capital T trauma.
Yeah.
Like, we don't all have the same starting point when it comes to that.
I agree to that.
And we don't, by the way, I'm not going to disagree with you. I'm going to acknowledge that and then also agree, actually. We don't have an equal starting point. And that's why I've started to define personal development as accelerated maturity, because it's like your starting point, you might be doing personal growth because you're actually less mature than others because of your circumstances, or you might need to catch up, and and you've been hitting the glass ceiling and you can't solve your problems because you were actually you look around at your peers, your contemporaries, and they're all further along than you are, and you're trying to figure that out. So there's a lot of things that goes into personal growth and development, but the one thing, I couldn't agree with you more, actually, because no matter what your starting point is, and no matter how resourced you are with time, energy, attunement, and those kinds of things, like, it's hard to go do a Vipassana retreat, even if it's actually literally free. Most Vipassana retreats, 10-day meditations, they ask for a donation. Yeah. It's open to anybody. Like, you got to go be quiet and, eat rice and beans. But it's like, you don't even have to donate if you don't want to. You can go do a 10-day Vipassana retreat for absolutely free. And like, Vipassana facilities all over the United States anyway. And I'm assuming that extends to Europe, Australia, and other places.
Yeah.
But who has the 10 days, right? So if you're working 2 jobs and hustling, you got kids and maybe you're a single parent or whatever, how are you going to go do a 10-day Vipassana retreat, right?
Yeah.
So there are unequal situations, but even a person in that situation can generally find time to go, what is this meditation thing, right? And or like maybe do some stretches and do some yoga and get in touch with the body. There are also people who have different places that they start with mental health, which might have them be self-sabotaging and not pursue those things.
Sure.
And yet it doesn't matter where you start with mental health. You can always improve and get better. Like you can put attunement to improving and continuing. So when we talk about personal development, I think we get this like sort of Santa Monica yoga 30-something-year-old, woman image in our head, drinking $5 bulletproof coffees and $20 smoothies. But it's just really a matter of attuning to the self.
Yeah.
And like you said, when we start to do that, when we start to pour time and resource into this thing that it's not free. Like you have to put time and energy into it, but it is without financial cost.
Yeah.
Opportunity cost sometimes, but without, like, you don't have to pay money for it as a general rule to truly do it. I think it absolutely starts leveling the playing field because like you said, there are billionaires who have been on the cover of magazines and they're miserable because they're not doing it, even though one could argue. I mean, of course, those people are probably running from meeting to meeting and they don't have time either, right? And so it's like those two people are both hustling and they're both running into the same experience and they're both experiencing the same lack of fulfillment. So if a person chooses to put time and effort and resources into it, I believe it does start to level the playing field. That accelerating of maturity starts to even that privilege gap to some extent. And I think in a very relevant way, in a way that's hard to communicate until you started that process.
Yeah.
Once you start that process, it's like, oh, why didn't I do this before? Why have I been wasting all this time not doing this thing? It's like Brian Regan talks about getting glasses, right? He's like, I bought a pair of glasses and he's like, why is instantly improved vision not at the top of everybody's list? Like once you put the glasses on, you're like, why did I put this off? That was ridiculous. And I think personal growth or accelerating one's maturity is very similar. So I just want to make that caveat because I could almost hear the person be like, that's not true. There's a lot that goes into personal growth. It's also privileged, but it's actually not. It's actually not. You can start at any point and you can dedicate and donate 10 to 15 minutes a day to doing it. And you will outclass your peers. Just 15 minutes a day focused on doing growth work. You will start to see that privilege gap. If we're defining a successful life as happiness and well-being, you'll start to see that gap leveling out.
Yeah. And then the material things will come as a byproduct of that.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
What was your thought that you wanted to share?
I don't know why it's coming up, but my thought is, there might be some out there, maybe some of the listeners who think about business and kind of, bucket it in sort of like a Wall Street, Wolf of Wall Street kind of American Psycho. I don't want to sell my soul for the sake of money.
Yeah.
Kind of idea. What I would encourage is that you look at business and entrepreneurship as a tool to scale your impact.
Ooh.
And we need more entrepreneurs out there who aren't the typical Wall Street types, who can wield that power, who can direct that resource in a way that will make better impact in the world.
Yeah.
Those who are doing it now aren't doing a great job. So I really believe in those who aren't typically in the archetype to step up and go through that journey and make an impact on the world.